Okay, going back to Sherri Tenpenny, I want you to finish up with what's in the vaccines, what they admit it can do to you, even in the inserts. We're getting into some of the more horrible side effects, which we know are the actual effects. But then I want to talk about how much we devastated them last year with the truth, and how we exposed them this year.
Well, Alex, I really want to address all of those things because I think they're really important. All of the flu shots have different amounts of ingredients in them, and if people go to my website, it's drtenpenny.com, and click on the tab that says Forms, a lot of these things are available for free for all of your listeners. That they are downloadable PDF files that have all this documentation about what's in the flu shot, the comparison, how few flu deaths actually happen compared to pneumonia. There are PDF files up there looking at the pertussis outbreak that happened in California and how few deaths actually happen from pertussis. All of those are available for free downloads that people can print out and hand out to everybody they know from drtenpenny.com, and just click on the Forms button. But one of the things that people rarely talk about, and I've done a whole presentation on this, is the connection between the latex in the stoppers of the vials, not only of the flu shot, but of all of the other vaccines, those stoppers, the tops of those stoppers that they push the needle through in order to pull the vaccine solution into the syringe. They are latex. And on the package insert, it says that many people have susceptibility to having severe allergic reactions and even anaphylaxis from that little bit of latex that comes from that stopper. Now, here's the really important part, is that they have had a synthetic, neutral, non-allergenic stopper, a medical-grade stopper available to be using in these vaccines for 62 years, Alex. For 62 years, there has been a safer product available that they have not used, and only about half of the vaccines now have synthetic stoppers. The other still have latex in the stoppers.
Well, Doc, that's like bisphenol A. They've had hundreds of different, really thousands of different plastic combinations that don't leach estrogen mimickers, which they now admit are reducing men's fertility, making women, hyperhormonal, accelerating breast cancer. That's now all admitted. So we know what these different plastic compounds can do.
Yeah, when I started looking into this latex rubber stopper thing, I thought that what I was going to find was that the serious reactions were coming from the synthetic stoppers. It isn't. It's from the latex stoppers. But what's really important to me is that people need to, if you're going to get a flu shot, or if you know any of your neighbors or anybody else that you know that is going to get a flu shot, it's really important to ask your doctor who's ever going to be injecting you. You want to see that package insert. You want to make sure that you're getting a mercury-free flu shot, because in the multi-dose vials, they still have mercury. You want to make sure that you get a stopper that doesn't have latex in it. You want to get the smallest amount of dose that you can possibly get away with. And I think that once people download these things and they hand them out to their friends and neighbors, and once people start seeing it, it goes to your second point, Alex, on what a great job you did and I did and Pandemic Flu Online and a lot of other people did last year to getting people aware and to have the lowest injection rate ever, that they had to burn $450 million worth of flu shots because they all expired.
And Sherri, let me stop you. Again, this isn't about being on a power trip. It's an incredible responsibility. The millions of people that listen to what you have to say on the hundreds of talk shows you do, including national television, on the millions of listeners and Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com readers that I have, that we were able to expose it from the beginning. We told people the reactions it was going to cause because it was on the insert that it would do this. Not like we're rocket scientists. I mean, maybe you are, you're a medical doctor, but I'm no rocket scientist. If the insert says it, kind of like gasoline canisters say, highly flammable, don't get this on you, don't breathe this, don't light it. I'm not pouring gasoline on myself and firing it up. I mean, it doesn't, kind of like firearms say, don't aim this at yourself and, keep the safety on and don't pull the trigger. I can read those inserts and I can understand what's happening, but to realize just the huge effect that our listeners had, that you had, that all of us had, that we're very close to beating these people And that's why they're really turning the heat up this year to try to break our will and force us to take these and force people through color of law to take them. I mean, this is amazing. I think that if we can beat them this year again and beat them next year, that they are going to be defeated except for one thing. Clearly, they are going to, and they've shown they'll do this in the past, release biological pathogens to create a pandemic to say, see, you weren't vaccinated, so some type of weaponized system, will basically be released. Because, the last 5 years in a row in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, on record, the UN gives children polio vaccine that is not just live polio, but one of the deadliest strains, clearly weaponized, and it's killing and maiming them, and it's buried as a footnote, and then they use the spreading of real polio caused by people being given real polio by the vaccine as a pretext to then try to vaccinate more people. And they admitted that in the CBS article. Well, this spread it, so they're saying there's even more reason for you to take it. I see this multi-$100 billion a year industry or more pulling something like this to get this over on us, or hyping things up like the whooping cough situation, where you've had just a few deaths, but they're hyping it up like it's the end of the world. And then if we look at the flu shots last year, they hyped up a lot of deaths that weren't caused by the flu. I wonder how many of these really weren't caused by whooping cough.
Well, that's really true. I want to comment about what you just said. The CDC came out with a retraction paper. They're not calling it a retraction paper, but it kind of is. You know how every year, for as long as you and I have both been doing this, the mainstream news says, oh, yes, 36,000 deaths per year from the flu, blah, blah, blah. 36,000 deaths, 36,000 deaths. Well, this year the CDC's come out with a paper, and they've done the same analysis on their own data that I've done on their data and have published in my new DVD on the flu. And what they said was, yes, in all of the years, on average, there's about 2,300 deaths in people 19 years of age of older, and 140 deaths in people 19 age and younger. So that's the total amount of flu. So it isn't anywhere close to 36,000 deaths. And then when they look at the overall range of the number of incidents of people who've died from the flu since 1976, their ranges that on an annual basis, it can range from somewhere from 3,300 people may die up to 49,000 people may die. I mean, what kind of a range is that? And even some of the people from the CDC are saying that it's absolutely irrelevant and it means nothing. And from a year-to-year basis, they really don't know. But they know on average less than 2,300 people over the age of 19 die per year from the flu, and less than 140. Now, they cannot justify by their own numbers giving children starting at 6 months of age flu shots every single year when there are fewer people that die from the flu that are under 19 years of age than die from car accidents, that die from bicycle accidents, that die from drownings.
Well, that's like Gardasil. That's like Gardasil. You might have 3,000 deaths a year from cervical cancer of 300 million people, half of those being women, so 150 million here in the United States. And I read the medical literature. They're almost always rundown prostitutes, drug addicts, people with AIDS, people who've survived cancer, people who have diabetes. Same thing with the flu numbers. And then they admit on the insert that this can kill you, this can hurt you, and this may not even protect you from the papillomavirus.
Yeah, the way that there are over 100 different strains of papillomavirus. There are 6 strains that are between 6 and 8 strains that tend to be more carcinogenic. There are only 2 strains that are in the Gardasil vaccine for HPV, for cervical cancer, strain number 18 and number 16. I just read a new report that came out last week that said that if strain 16 is persistent, you'd have an increased risk of cancer down the road. Well, more than 90% of people, when they get HPV, it comes and goes. So when they say is persistent, does that mean more than 2 years or 5 years or 7 years? The numbers are such a big
And there's also
mismatch.
cervical treatments. I mean, if they find that you have it, they go in and clean it up, and that knocks the risk out.
Well, better than that, Alex, it's been my experience in my practice here in Cleveland, Ohio, that if women have positive HPV, that I really believe, and it's been our experience, that it's a nutritional deficiency disease. And when we clean up their diets and we get them on high doses of vitamin D, get their vitamin D levels up to 80 by blood test, put them on vitamin A, use some other types of supplements, and in women over the age of 40, use some natural progesterone, it goes away on its own. So and we have almost 100% of the time.
Well, that's what all the studies show. These are run down, I'm sorry to say it, but mainly crack whores.
Well, and maybe not all of them.
No, I'm saying a large percentage from other medical doctors we've talked to have said cancer survivors, really sick people, or folks living on the street who aren't eating good food.
Yes, and so it goes back to my point of that persistent HPV infections are a nutritional deficiency disease. And if you clean up your diet and do the right things for your health, that will go away and doesn't become a problem in almost everybody. So back to what you were saying about pertussis, the numbers of pertussis, I mean, we had that big, I'm sure, you talked about it a lot. I've talked about it when it was all happening in California, that you get a few cases of pertussis and everybody goes into hysteria. And I think it's really important for your listeners to know that the only age group in which pertussis is really a serious illness is in babies under 3 months of age. The vast majority of everyone else has a persistent cough, and it goes away in a couple of months. And
so why do parents throw their 1-month-old baby in daycare with 50 other kids? Because I've seen the studies that a lot of times the vaccine doesn't even really protect them fully from the whooping cough.
Oh, it doesn't protect at all. In fact, most of the kids that end up with pertussis, or a large percentage of them, have been vaccinated at 2, 4, and 6 months.
So there you go. They're killing them, and that's the studies I'd seen. I wanted to make sure with a medical doctor. I bet if you go actually research these kids, a lot of them were vaccinated.
Yep, and I want to just give you one statistic. There's lots of them out there, and again, if you went to drtenpenny.com and clicked on forums, you can download these PDFs and see them for yourself. In 2007, there were 10,454 reported cases of pertussis nationwide. Confirmed cases of pertussis. There were 10 deaths. If we vaccinated over 10,000 people and had 10 deaths from the vaccine, they would say that was statistically insignificant. But if we have 10,000 cases of pertussis and 10 deaths, it's a national emergency, and they're going to call it an epidemic. So they twist these numbers and use them however they can to incite fear in everybody.
That's right. We have massive death, miscarriages, brain damage, narcolepsy, people developing permanent epilepsy from the vaccines, admitted, just the H1N1 alone. Every other major vaccine, same story, or even worse. We know it's doing it, and they're like, it's insignificant to have 3,500 miscarriages. It's insignificant to have tens of thousands developing Guillain-Barré. It's insignificant to have tens of thousands developing epilepsy from brain inflammation. But one person dies of pertussis. It's the end of the world. See you anti-vaccine kooks. You all need to go to jail.
That pretty much sums it up.